Good morning. It's a real honor for me to be able to address you at the opening of this very significant event for Jubail Industrial City and the exploration that you'll be doing for how to integrate the work on organizational learning into the further development of the large industrial community that is in the city. It's also a special treat because I'm imagining many of my friends, certainly organizations that I've gotten to know well in the region, like SABEC and Saudi Aramco, in the audience. As a few of you may know, there has been a Society for Organizational Learning in the Gulf region, Gulf Seoul, for now a good many years. It's a wonderful network of people and organizations working to integrate organizational learning tools and practices into how their businesses work. And both SABEC and Saudi Aramco have been leaders in that movement. This morning, I just want to take a few minutes, particularly for those of you who are new to this work. I know that some of you are relatively familiar and some of you are completely unfamiliar. Just to talk a little bit about the basics. What is this work really all about? And what are some of the consequences and benefits for a business, but also for society? The work on organizational learning has been an ongoing evolution. So I'm now like giving you a snapshot of a river. So it's important that you appreciate that it's an ongoing process of continual testing and improving of ideas and particularly tools and methods. The SOL Network, Society for Organizational Learning Global Network, now covers over 30 countries and SOL communities around the world. In fact, we had the Global SOL Forum in Muscat, hosted by Gulf Seoul, just 2 or 3 years ago. And if I remember, we had about 350 people from about 45 countries. So as you would imagine, as this body of knowledge starts to become integrated in different cultures, it also has a huge impact on how we understand what the work is all about. And it evolves and takes new and different shape and new and different forms and new and different nuances in every cultural context. But there are some fundamentals that transcend cultural context. In all cases, this work is about how organizations work at their best. An organization could be a business, it could be a school. It could be a very large enterprise, it could be a very small enterprise. It could be a school with 10 staff people, or it could be a global multinational business with 10,000 or 100,000 employees. Either way, it comes down to how people work together, how teams function, and to what extent can we create an environment, for example, where people really can be open and candid in a team setting, where they can continually challenge their own thinking, as well as raise difficult questions, perhaps about how the organization has historically done things. It's easy for any of us to be a critic of somebody else, but it's a very particular leadership skill to also, in a sense, be a critic effectively of yourself. We often call that the capacity for reflection. And a cornerstone of all of this work is always to build environments, collaborative, collective environments where people can reflect. When they reflect, they both are looking at the current situation and they're reflecting on their aspirations. So those represent the two other key domains of the work. When we look at current reality, it's very typical that we look in a very fragmented way. We just see bits and pieces, or we see a particular problem here. Somebody needs to do something about the problem. But we don't often see the larger context and source. How did that problem come about? Maybe something is manifesting over here. It's sort of like you have a fever. But you don't just treat the fever. If the fever is really extreme, of course you treat the fever so that the fever is moderated. But what you really want to understand is what's the cause of the fever? What is it that could be going on anywhere in this larger system that's producing a symptom called a fever? Businesses have this problem all the time. They react to a shortfall in sales, they react to an employee survey, they react to a customer making a complaint about some quality issue, and they immediately kind of focus on how do we fix that problem. But in this process of reflection, it's reflection on the system as a whole to the best of your ability, so you can better understand the sources of the problem. But lastly, that reflection is also on us. And one thing that I think we've seen again and again over decades is that real systemic change is hard work. It takes time. There's no simple formula. It takes commitment. It takes lots of people who are really willing to think together about difficult issues. And the question always is lingering, why? What would motivate this? It's one thing to try to react and fix the problem. Your motivation in that sense is pretty simple. We got to make this problem go away. It's another thing to think, oh, no, this problem over here and this problem over here and this problem over here, they're all arising out of a set of basic practices, metrics, things we've done for years in our organization, which together are creating these problems. That's a tough thing to change. So the third leg of the stool, so to speak, with reflection, seeing systems, and the third leg of the stool is understanding what it is we really care about, what really are our aspirations. In my experience, the only thing that will suffice as a long-term, deep motivation for real systemic change is a vision of where we want to be, an image of a future that we really care about, something that motivates us just as your image of a son or daughter that's healthy and grows up to be a contributor to her or his society. It will motivate you as a parent, just as your vision of something you want to accomplish that really matters to you a lot in your own work would really motivate you in your work. Organizations are motivated to this work because there's things they really care about. I also touched on one other aspect, which has been a recurring theme in my visits to the region. And I've been very touched by this and actually a little surprised, because I think you may or may not realize it's a bit of a distinctive feature of the Arab cultures and the Gulf region, which is this deep understanding of the harmony that needs to exist between family, society, and work. We've probably had as many powerful conversations on family and the health and well-being of our families in the Gulf Seoul meetings as we have on the health and well-being of our businesses, and an appreciation that the two are critically interconnected. I think this is an appreciation that has been largely lost in the West, but I think it's still very present in your region and your cultures. So when we reflect on what matters to us, it's not as a president or an engineer or a salesperson or a manufacturing manager. It's as a human being. So naturally, reflection in this sense also is very integrative. And it's something that's always been very central in our work to encourage people to really think deeply about their visions for their lives, not just their visions as a professional person. So that naturally then starts to interconnect my personal development, my work, my family, my whole network of relationships. And maybe I could end on that note. If there's one simple image to me that would summarize the aspiration of all this work, it's that we are continually building more and more healthy networks of relationships in the world, amongst people of all sorts. But not only amongst people. A lot of our most frayed and struggling relationships right now are between us as human beings and the larger natural world. Human beings are not a separate species. We're just part of the web of life. So our relationships with Mother Earth, our relationships with the other species, are also ones that to me are part of the core aspiration of this work. How can human beings live in a way that we are continually nurturing networks of relationships that promote well-being, health, and vitality in a future that we all would want to live in? Thank you.